Well, welcome everybody. Hope everybody's having a good morning, night, wherever everybody is. All I do is part 2 of what the guy from Area 52 was doing in Ross Coulthart. The dangerous truth about UFOs. Also, after the legal part, this is fair use because I have my own UFO experiences, contact, stuff like that, and lots of other paranormal things that have happened all throughout my life. So I'm putting, my experiences in, and anyways, just want to get right to this. Let's see here.
Facing cover might be not as might be just some type of like surface cover to allow them to give out some information, but that in reality they might be a little bit deeper into the program.
I don't buy the line that Jake or David are part of a controlled disclosure.
No, that's not what I'm asking. I'm just asking if what they've disclosed, they might know a lot more than they're letting.
Oh yeah, no, I'm in no doubt about that.
And might be involved a lot more.
No, and I think particularly David. I mean, David, frankly, was cleared. Unbelievable. I mean, I'm privy to information from sources unrelated to David. When I was checking David out,
that had mentioned him.
There were people who were in awe of David Grush.
Wow.
I mean, literally. David was carrying the presidential daily brief and secret documents to the White House on a train with a colleague escorting him. I mean, that's how trusted he was. He had knowledge of, I think, over 2,000 special access programs, right up to WUSAPs. He was one of the most highly cleared people in the Defense Department for secrets. So he's privy to a lot of programs. And the really interesting thing is, when you look at how he came to the realization, working with the UAP task force, that there was this parallel program that had been kept secret from him, it blew him away. He had not the conceit, but he had the strong belief that he'd know about it. Of course he'd know about it. I'm cleared for all of these secrets. Why don't I know about this? And then when he asked friends of his, literally in the cafeteria at the Pentagon, what do you know about this claim about a legacy program involving UFOs? And people sort of gave him a bit of a nudge. And then he realized it was real. And that's the interesting thing is, I was going to tell you earlier, one of the people that I've met in the course of my investigations is a former very senior official at NASA. And they are an absolute luminary of the defence establishment, somebody who you would automatically think would have been read in to the program because of the roles that they played at the level that they played in the Defence Department. This is somebody who worked at an extremely high level in NASA and also went and worked at an extremely high senior executive level in the Defence Department. And miraculously, they agreed to speak to me. And they said, look, Ross, if this is true, I promise you, I do not know anything about this. And I became aware of the fact that the person 3 rungs down from him in NASA was the gatekeeper for the legacy program. And this was a person who was in charge. I just recently found this out. This was a person who was in charge of a lunar reconnaissance mission that's incredibly significant in terms of anomalies on the moon. And what freaked me out was the realization that this is so controlled and so clever that you can have the person who's almost at the apex of the entity completely oblivious and unaware of the fact that there is this secret program that's, I believe very strongly, hiding from the public knowledge of things that NASA has seen over the years and obscuring photographs and hiding data. I know.
How many people do you think?
I mean, they do that with, space station stuff. They do that with there's that space shuttle, and pictures of the moon, Mars, and all this other stuff. They pretty much they brush it out. So, I mean, like I said, there's two NASAs. There's a public one for public and education, learning, and then there's the classified NASA. This is created from the Air Force, the first, and before, NASA was created, the Air Force put out this idea, and he was as president at the time. Who should be in charge of it? The Air Force wanted to be in charge of it, and people, actually, I can't remember, a group of people wanted to have something like NASA there just for the educational part. They said, well, you guys need to be supervised, you need to be looked at, make sure that UFO stuff is not leaked out, and that you guys need to be accountable and always looked at, supervised. And so NASA came to be, even with the Air Force, military wanting to have the oversight over it. It became its own entity and stuff like that within the government and stuff for just space and everything. So, but yeah, I've seen where NASA will turn off live feeds when there's a UFO. People should look on YouTube and other places on the net, see about how UFOs were caught on space station feeds or shuttle, and then they just turn it right off. And nowadays when they say that the space station is live, it's not, it's a lie. They're not live, they don't do that live stuff anymore when they say they are. That's because UFOs have often been caught on tape. So, there'd be somebody recording the whole thing, and they'd be able to see that there's a UFO at a certain point when the space station is going around the Earth and everything. So, they stop pretty much doing that. Even when they say they're live, they're not. But anyways,
You're involved in something like that. Like, okay, at the tip, I've heard numbers anywhere up to like 24, or like this is, at the very tip. But just beneath that, like what?
It would have to be. I mean,
thousands, right?
There would have to be thousands now who are read in. I mean,
that's an inconceivable number for people to think about. But obviously, if we go back to Manhattan Project, there was 130,000 people involved.
For the people who say that it couldn't possibly be kept secret, the Manhattan Project is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Were it not for Klaus Fuchs, who was the Russian spy who penetrated the Manhattan Project, it might have stayed secret for a lot longer from the Soviets. But the simple fact is, one traitor can blow this, and I can tell you the level of surveillance in the legacy program is just insane.
How do you know that?
Because of the measures that my sources require me to go to, the techniques that I have to use in order to communicate with them.
Have you ever caught them sort of listening in on you? Have you ever had an instance where you're like, "Oh, I see you there," and they kind of run off, or like?
No. I mean, these people are patriots.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing that I feel an enormous sense of responsibility about is these are good people.
They want to serve their country.
They want to serve their country, and they're proud of what they're doing.
Of course, as the people who work...
Like I said, I should fast forward a little bit. The thing is that they're brainwashed, like I said, into the bullshit of, indoctrination of how it's about serving your country, keeping stuff quiet. That's just bullshit. This is one reason why I didn't go to the military, because I knew about UFOs already and a lot of secret stuff, and I wasn't going to keep it quiet. I wasn't. People have a right to know it's not about national security or anything. It's just a bullshit lie, and people are stupid to believe in that. That BS and everything. People are just easily brainwashed. They're brainwashed by this BS as well. It has nothing to do about being a patriot. Actually, would be getting all the truth out, letting people know, not keeping this stuff a secret. That's what real patriots would do. Anyways, fast forward this because I already
by this guy, beaten to death in prison. Listened as
but more so things that will unwind the fabric of our reality.
Well, I think I was the first to suggest this. I was privy as a journalist to covering the South African Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And I don't think, a lot of people get angry with me when I say this because they want public trials and they want people prosecuted for murder and all this sort of stuff. And maybe they should be. But one of the most effective things I've ever seen to stop a nation state from tearing itself apart was what I saw in post-apartheid South Africa, where de Klerk, the president at the time, ordered a Truth and Reconciliation Commission and handed a power over to Nelson Mandela. And Nelson Mandela was brought in as president. And I watched a boss Secret Service agent, a former guy who'd been involved in killing members of SWAPO, the anti-apartheid group, what they categorized as a terrorist organization. I watched an incredible moment where the family of the man who'd been killed by this guy, beaten to death in prison, listened as this guy talked about what he'd done, the crimes that he'd committed. And he knew that if he gave a full and candid confession of what he'd done, he was exonerated. There's nothing the state could do to him. And I strongly believe that was far more healing, and that's certainly what the family told me of the man who was killed, than putting the guy in prison for 20 or 30 years.
And letting him hold on to all that.
Yeah.
And not
because
divulge it.
For that man, I mean, the fascinating thing for me as a journalist was seeing that killer. And it was killers on both sides. I mean, in that conflict, you had black killing white, white killing black. It was a really nasty internecine conflict. But it was curative. It was a restorative thing for that country.
But I suppose the difference here is that these people aren't operating under government, oversight, and that's the problem. Is that we can offer them this immunity, but they're going to get a bullet to the back of the head.
That's why contractors.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of them have.
Yeah, and some of them have. Yeah.
I mean, this is the incredible thing about this, and this is what really angers me, because Congress has dropped the ball, and this is who we should be angry with. At the moment, we can see with the congressional response to the Epstein story, I don't think the current administration is going to get away with trying to bury the Epstein story. It's pretty obvious that there are
They've gotten away with it for a long time, these people, and it's a lot bigger. I mean, it's a multinational thing. Democrats and Republicans are involved in it. Millionaires, billionaires, royalty from different nations, from Arabia to the UK to, isn't there some from, the Nordic areas as well? There's, besides Prince Andrew, there's some other royals that were involved in that. And it proves that if you're the rich and powerful, there's two-tiered injustice system where if you're rich and powerful, you could get away with it. And there's a lot of satanic stuff that I've looked at with Epstein stuff. Eating children, boys, girls, all kinds of sick shit, and they're getting away with murdering these people. Isn't just Trump getting away with stuff, but all these other people as well. I don't know how far Trump was. I know Trump's done some dirty stuff. I know he has. But if they're to go after Trump, you have to go after Democrats that are involved in this as well, and all these other people. It should never be about politics. I hate that, and I curse politics. I hate that. But they're to get away with murder, probably just like, the people on these legacy UFO programs. And I think a lot should face execution for the crimes they've committed, because some of them committed murder themselves and other terrible crimes. So,
Republicans who are saying, we cannot tolerate this. These are little girls that have been raped by ugly establishment men. Mm-hmm. This needs to be revealed. Yeah. I think it's going to be fascinating over the next few months to see the impetus building, because it's very like the impetus that built the public outrage that sparked the Church Commission into the CIA's abuses in the 1970s. What I'm wondering is whether we can get momentum for the UAP issue out of that as well, as part of a broader investigation into not just VIP elites having sex with little girls on an island owned by Jeffrey Epstein, but the whole idea of a deep state, which I never used to believe in. I used to think that was paranoid right-wing nonsense. The whole idea that there's a state...
But wouldn't that also be a great misdirection?
What, investigating the Epstein material?
No, I mean, not in the sense that it shouldn't be investigated, but in the sense that maybe there is, in light of recent age of disclosure coming out, there's been a little bit more public interest in this stuff.
I don't know if it is a misdirection. You see, I think what lies at the heart of all of this is there's something broken in the America that I grew up, I can honestly tell you as a boy, revering. Mm-hmm. We looked in Australia and New Zealand when I was a kid with awe at America as the leader of the free world. A country that lived democratic ideals and principles. And in law school, we studied the US Constitution, and it enshrined these rights. And we studied the story of how these rights had been won, and the founding forefathers dictated these rights and put them down in a constitutional document, a Bill of Rights.
I mean, the fact is, if our forefathers were here today, they'd want to destroy the government. They want it destroyed, taxes the way that they are and everything else. They would not like the way America is today. I related to two presidents, Washington and Johnson, indirectly and stuff. So it's like, if it's anyone that knows about that, the Constitution and everything, it's gone to shit from what it was, from what it's supposed to be. And people have a right to know this stuff. But
you're so lucky. The Americans are so lucky they've got that document. But what's happened is those ideals have been squandered. I mean, they're there in name only, in expression of ideal only. They're not really being practiced. And we see the frustration, the public frustration with what's happening with the Epstein story, the fact that there really is a group of people who are being protected, frankly, by people in power.
Yeah.
The government is misusing its authority, its legal power, to stop further investigation into people who quite properly ought to be held to account. And there's really, I don't think, a huge difference between the potential illegality, impropriety, and I think constitutional issues that are raised by that, especially when politicians are involved and potential administration figures, and the kind of issues that are being raised by the UAP subject.
UFOs.
What we've got here at the heart of our issues is a constitutional crisis. Does America care anymore about democracy? 50 years ago, a newspaper, the Washington Post, pretty much single-handedly
the government
propelled public awareness about alleged crimes committed by people close to the president. The extraordinary revelations of Watergate.
The Watergate scandal, yeah.
And the involvement of a president in a cover-up, ordering break-ins into psychiatrists' offices in the Watergate complex to get dirt on the Democrats. incredible scandal, and it led to reforms that instigated oversight protections in the Constitution and in the Congress that were a warning to the public, don't let this happen again.
Mm-hmm.
And the amazing thing is, we
It's
have.
a lot worse.
Because all through...
that's the thing. What happened there was Watergate was actually criminal, and what Nixon did was stuff other presidents have done a lot worse, and Nixon definitely got a bad rap, and everything. It's just they went after his jugular because it was during the Vietnam War, and that's the most divisive thing, that war. And we didn't go in it to win it. We pretty much lost. I mean, we won every battle, but it was a loss when we're running with the tail between our legs back home. And they took Hanoi, took Saigon. I said Saigon. But I mean, like I said, our forefathers, they're here today. They'd probably die. They'd probably have a heart attack and die with all the stuff that's going on, and these secrets, stuff like that. Now, some of them realize that some things need to be secret, and then some of them, would be pissed off and say we need to eliminate a lot of the government the way it is. We've lost a lot of our rights that we used to have in so many ways. A lot of our rights have totally gone.
At that time, the one secret that they sat on, that they protected, was the UFO secret, the UAP secret. And if, and I believe it is, it's true that people have been murdered to protect these secrets, intimidated, bullied, threatened, their lives destroyed, people basically beaten, hurt, their jobs taken away from them, their security clearances stripped for no good reason. If that kind of state intimidation and misuse of lethal force has been used to exert a control over this secret, why isn't that just as important, if not more important, than the fact that there's no momentum on the Epstein case?
Oh, there's no question that it is important, and there's no question that there, I think a lot of people feel this way, even if they are quite passive about it. The problem is that that's kind of always existed.
Yes, but that's the... That's
this
what
thuggery from the government.
That's what I would call the resigned skeptic view of the world, which is, these mongrels are always going to...
Yeah, the thing is, I knew about this secrecy for decades, for 30 years, or 30 plus years or more. I knew, I come from people also from the 60s, where you're not supposed to trust your government. Don't trust the government. And only an idiot would trust in their government. You don't, because they cover up a lot of crime, and the way it is even more so now, it's just filthy, rotten to the core. What our government does and what it allows, and it's like the government could get away with doing this, but if it's you or I, or average Jane or Joe, then we're to be in prison for life. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be in charge of the government. The people are supposed to be in charge of the government, not the government in charge of us, and not these gatekeepers with UFOs and secret departments, compartments, and of UFO programs where they can kill anybody that they please. That's a threat to them. That's not supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to exist either.
Lie to us. They're always going to be deceitful.
They are.
They're always going to. And look, I love the histories of the CIA that show that the real history of the CIA is just about
It's skullduggery.
The levels of illegality and lies. I mean, the fact that Alan Dulles and James Jesus Angleton did what I think were totally illegal things when they were running the CIA and misled presidents, withheld information from elected authorities.
I mean, this day that people, if they want to learn more, they should look into how Truman made the CIA and how he made it possible for these people to get away with stuff with, qualified immunity, where they have special immunity to get away with stuff because it'd be seen as in the best interest of national security that they did this stuff, and it just breeded corruption everywhere. When Truman, signed these things, national security and the formation of the CIA and things.
That enshrined an attitude in the CIA,
Right.
which led John F. Kennedy to decide he wanted to blow the organization into 1,000 pieces.
Yeah,
he was really angry about it.
Sure.
And I don't believe President Kennedy was killed by a lone assassin. I think there was a conspiracy, and the evidence is overwhelming of that. And you get these pompous asses in the usual...
Well, this is the thing. It was Luna. What was it? That Representative Luna. And they went over stuff, and she said it wasn't just one, it wasn't just two, there were 3 assassins on this. And why haven't they released this? It's because they don't want the people to know how much corruption there is in the government. And you have the CIA that was involved. You have National Security Council that's involved. You have the mob that was involved. And they don't want the truth coming out, how dirty and how criminal, the dark side of our government is. They want people to think that we have a great government. And that's smoke and mirrors. I mean, we are very lucky of what we have. We are very lucky. We have Social Security. We have different types of health care. We're very lucky. So that's one of the reasons why people say, hey, no way our government did this. But again, some of it's also there to control the people. To control the people from rioting and burning down buildings and stuff like that. So, I mean, we are lucky, though, is what we have compared to other countries. Very lucky. And stuff. And, in a lot of ways, we're the best country in the world, but we're also no better than any other dictatorship, totalitarian regime. When we do all this criminal activity with the UFO stuff, when there's also, we have, pedophiles in government and satanic people that like to eat children and other things. We're no better than the worst country that there is either. So, I mean, the thing is, there's this hypocrisy, though.
Usual establishment newspapers who sweepingly assert in the op-ed articles that they write every year or so, these conspiracy theorists who basically speculate that there was some kind of a plot by the CIA. It wasn't a plot by the CIA, it was a plot by individuals within and without the CIA.
Yep.
Cuban emigres, Alan Dulles. I'm in no doubt that is integrally connected to the UAP.
Of course. He also wanted nukes to be gone.
Yeah.
And that was a big problem as well, because you had these, generals who were like nuke happy and
Yeah, and I just noticed today I was reading the latest article by Jeff Cruikshank, my Australian friend, who believes that the MJ12 documents are almost certainly real.
which the Psalm 1. Yeah.
And basically what he's looked at in his most recent analysis is handwriting of President Truman with handwriting of Truman allegedly in the MJ12 documents, and it's clearly identical.
The sort of Eisenhower briefing.
But more
Those have
importantly,
different
it
names.
refers to things that weren't known about at the time that the MJ12 documents appeared, that were only released, I think, in 2023.
Wow.
And so
It's interesting.
it's really interesting. So we're in a situation now where increasingly the provenance of the so-called MJ12 documents, which suggest a government conspiracy, a cabal of people that are trying to protect the secrets of the UFO mystery for the benefit of a certain group of people in the United States, the fact that even if that's being done as a kind of noble cause, process corruption in the interests of the state, by a few people who are doing it to protect maybe an executive order that was signed right back in 1947 or in the 1950s.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't wash in this day and age that you could have a situation where Clinton or Obama, Ford or Carter weren't able to be briefed on that information, and they were making decisions as the person nominally in charge of the defense forces of America, nominally the commander-in-chief, not knowing that the president didn't have a right to know,
There's a need to
and they
know
were making
basis.
integral decisions about the deployment of strategic resources of the military and the intelligence community. There's just something broken,
Of course.
in a state that allows that kind of thing to happen.
There definitely is, but how do you break the news that you have a treaty with aliens to the population?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 'Cause where's that line of like, what do we tell them?
Well,
How do
you're not, because especially with alien abductions where rapes take place and people are forced to give semen to these beings and stuff like that. You know, and because I try and kill them. I try to do all my power to kill these beings that are doing this. And people are saying, well, why are you allowing this to happen? How do they display that to the American public or the world public? Because this isn't just the United States, this is a world, this is happening around the world, not just the United States. So.
do we?
Well, if anybody's going to do it, I think it's Trump that's got the balls to do it.
Right.
I don't think any other president would have the cojones or the impetuousness to decide to do it. I think Trump might just. But I don't want to disappoint people, but I'm hearing no evidence from anyone. None of my sources are telling me.
His daughter went on the record recently.
His daughter-in-law.
Daughter-in-law,
Yeah.
sorry, my bad.
Lara,
went on the record recently saying, no, he's got something up his sleeve type deal.
Well, she's hearing stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. And look, I don't know. I mean, but bottom line is, I would have thought that some of my sources would have heard about it by now if there was a speech being prepared. And at the moment, I'm not hearing any suggestion that there is.
Okay. Let's shift gears here a bit. I want to talk. Thank you for that lovely train of thought on the corruption of the United States agencies, and I think we all kind of feel the same way. We're all distrust is growing. It's not dissipating.
And this is the thing, is that it's so corrosive.
Yeah.
It really is corrosive, and I think that's why this issue is capturing the public imagination the way
Right.
it is. So I don't know about you, but I'm just overwhelmed by people wanting to engage and
Yes.
talk about the UAP issue.
Yeah, everyone except flat earthers are really happy about their conspiracies coming true. I think the flat earthers are the ones left
Poor
in the dark.
people.
Wait.
Feel sorry
Literally,
for
you're
them
admitting
almost.
to everything. We got UFOs. We got this cabal of like children eating, politicians, and
I'm sorry. There are some of these wilder claims that I just can't take seriously.
Yeah. Have you? Okay, I want to talk about the beings a little bit more because this is something that I'm really interested in a philosophical way, but also just I think it's really interesting. We hear a lot of these tales and stories. Has anyone ever come to you in any credible sort of fashion with the information of reptilian beings being among us or being interacting with us or us having encountered them? Has any of... and
I've heard it.
Look, it depends what you call credible.
Sure.
I'm at a really
Right.
interesting point in my own research where
Yeah,
I
but-
wrestle with the fact that, as a journalist, A lot of people say, oh, it's only a witness. That's not evidence.
Right.
And witness evidence is evidence.
Of course it is.
It's the best evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what we do in court is we test that evidence by cross-examination. And we hold that witness to their evidence and try and find holes in it. So I talk all the time to people who are first-hand witnesses who say they've had experiences with beings.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, probably up until 5 years ago, I used to giggle at them. I used to think it was
At the reptilian being specifically, or
any of this.
any beings.
I used to. I mean, I said to Whitley Strieber when I interviewed him last year, I said, Whitley, I would have laughed you out of town. 5 years ago.
Yeah, I always thought that was crazy when I was young too. But then it's like, well, who am I to judge? I know some different species of ETs, but some of it kind of makes sense at the same time, because I know that there's good and evil ones, and it's like we have trillions of stars and hundreds of billions of galaxies and everything, and be from a different time, different place, alternate reality, and different realities, stuff like that. And it's like, well, I think that I should rethink that and not think of it, especially when some of these people that talk about these lizard, mantis, looking ETs are coming from former people in the military as well, and hearing some people, other people. This is the thing, is that hearing from other people, so many, it's like you can't discount it anymore. You can't, because too many people are saying it. So
the idea of aliens coming into your bedroom at night,
sure,
and taking your semen, or taking you onto a spaceship. I mean, it's so easily ridiculed and stigmatized. But what I'm wrestling with at the moment is,
that's true,
like John Mack did, the abduction phenomenon, or let's call it more neutrally, the experiencer phenomenon, where people claim to have moments where they have been taken somewhere.
Yeah.
Sometimes it seems to be voluntary.
Yeah, it's some physical, non-physical.
And they're having encounters with beings. And so sometimes they're reptilian. For me...
Well, the thing is, a lot of them are forced. And I don't think he's done enough research on it. I don't think he has. I have. I've done this for decades of research on this, and how people are forced, they cannot move, taking semen, and ETs will go inside a woman's sexual organs and mess with that and everything, and they'll use it for hybrid species that they're making. They're alien and human. That stuff is very real, and people have gone to the hospital. They've had doctors check it, where they've had things inside them, tracking where they are. ETs will do that, and they can't. A lot of the time, they cannot take them out, because if they try to, it's like behind the eye and around the brain. If they try to take it out, you can kill the person. So there's some evil ETs that need to be killed, but it's very real. You see the evidence of how ETs put tracking devices into humans, and there's evidence of that. You can't just discount the stuff. So.
Big one in recent years was, I had several individuals contacted me completely independently, telling me how I'd started talking about downloads, and I'm really fascinated with consciousness, and I'm sure we'll get onto consciousness, but I'm fascinated with the idea that the real mystery, I don't really care anymore about the nuts and bolts claim of craft aliens. It's kind of like tangential. To me, the real mystery is consciousness,
sure,
and what's going on with human minds, and what's the meaning of our relationship in all of this? If there are beings that are engaging with this planet, why are they interested in us, us humans, or at least some humans?
Because they help create us.
And I keep on coming back to this consciousness mystery, and a lot of people have been telling me about what they get are downloads. In some cases, in many cases, it's either creative downloads. They're inspired to write beautiful art, or to do beautiful art, or write beautiful music, or scientific ideas. Literally, schematics, diagrams come into their heads and they write them down. And I've had this described to me by multiple people, multiple occasions. And in a period of time, about 18 months, 2 years ago, a lot of people started responding to me when I just casually mentioned the blue guys.
Yeah.
And I just said it casually. I just said, oh, you mean the blue guys? And I said it almost as a flippant comment. Oh my God, I was just swamped. My inbox just completely filled up. All over the world, people were writing to me about their engagement with the blue guys. And one example, there was a guy contacted me from a European country, and he had a dream, semi-dream, in that liminal moment between dreaming and waking, where there's a blue being talking to him, and then he's sitting in his living room and he's seeing what look like hieroglyphic images, and he's photographing them, and he sent me pictures of these images, and I sent them to somebody I know who's associated with the National Security Agency, the NSA, and he said it was like Sumerian.
Oh wow.
And like ancient Sumerian symbology.
They had part of our language,
and he couldn't
ETs.
translate a lot of it. A lot of it didn't make sense. But what was fascinating to me is the idea that there seems to be something engaging with human consciousness, or at least the consciousness of some humans, trying to communicate, in a lot of cases downloading. And talking about beings, a lot of them were these supposedly benevolent blue beings, often humanoid, but taller, and
not unlike what Jason Sands even describes being physical.
Yeah, and it's interesting because that was the one where I was completely overwhelmed. I mean,
you go from zero.
I went from zero
to blue
like hundreds.
Yeah,
and I was kind of embarrassed because a lot of them contacted me hoping that I would put them on camera and interview them, and it's like, do I? You know, and then I'm wrestling with this as a journalist.
Sure.
At what point do I start giving credibility to the idea that there are people giving consistent witness statements of what appear to be first-hand encounters with a phenomenon?
The thing is, I hate this bullshit where they only care about getting stuff from former military people, and people like me have known the truth all the time. A lot of us, people outside the military now, me and other people have family inside the military and classified stuff, so it's like we're in the in-between part. But normal people need to be taken more seriously. It's just very hard. It's very hard because, even I'm guilty of this, right? I think ordinary so-called normal people that say this or that happen to be with ETs, or you don't know whether you can trust them. You don't know whether you can believe them. Honestly, you can say the same with the government. People from the government that come out with UFO ET stuff. They could be lying as well. But we need to do more with normal people and everything, because a lot of these people have more people that are not from the military. More normal people have had interactions with the ETs. We can learn so much more from that and everything. And there's a lot of knowledge to be gained, a lot more intelligence to be gained, and it helps put all the pieces together in this big galactic puzzle and everything.
Phenomenon that appears to be a non-human intelligence that is engaging with them often in a semi-dream state,
Yeah.
but which appears to them to be real.
Yeah, there is the question, and that's something John Mack wrestled with as well, was the majority, what seems to be the majority of these interactions with these beings seems to be non-physical.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily mean a dream. There is some type of in-between non-physical realm that isn't quite a dream, and that can even leave you with physical markings. Like there is like this overlap as well. So it's, yeah, it begins to get very complicated when you try to explain the physical side, and people have a hard time swallowing that. And then to go from that to be like, oh, but the non-physical is also real.
Yeah.
And you go, wait a second, no, non-physical doesn't mean real in my brain. Non-physical means not real. But doesn't seem to be the case when the information that you're pulling from this non-physical can translate into something very real.
Yeah, and this is my problem with a lot of the phenomenon, and Jacques Vallée's talked about this, that whatever it is, we know from what's called Slide 9, which I wrote about in my book, this briefing document that was prepared for an Undersecretary of Defence, which essentially was the UAP task force or ORSAP briefing the Defence Department about what they'd learned about the phenomenon. And one of the things that they were telling the Defence Department was that whatever it is, it has the capacity to manipulate human perception.
Yeah.
I think they use something like cognitive inputs or something
Sure.
like that. But essentially, when you read between the lines, what they're describing is the ability to alter human perception.
Yep.
Right.
And I told you the story yesterday, and I'll tell you publicly.
That's also where you have to be careful with anybody, either a military witness or a so-called normal person, is that, how do you know that some of these so-called memories aren't implanted fake stuff, versus real and stuff. So because they could do that, they could plant stuff in a person's mind and all kinds of stuff as well, and they can warp reality around you, stop time and space and everything around you and everything. So
limited way, I spoke to a very senior Australian politician who contacted me out of the blue. He'd seen a story that I'd done on Australian TV, and this was a person. I was shocked that they rang me. They'd had to get my phone number off somebody and pull a favour, and I was like, holy hell, I cannot believe this person had rung me. And he said, Ross, I would deny I had this conversation if you ever named me, but I want you to know what happened to me. And he was a very senior minister of the Australian government, so secretary plus level, in the administration. And he is standing on a set of steps in Sydney, Australia, looking out over a public area where there are cars moving around, and he's waiting for his ministerial limousine to come and pick him up. His press secretary is standing beside him, and there are bodyguards standing around him as well, which probably gives you an idea of how important he was. And he looks up and he sees what he described to me, and he's adamant it was real. He says, I wasn't hallucinating, I hadn't been drinking, I hadn't been out for lunch. He looks up and he sees a gigantic elliptical metal disc hovering over the square. And he's looking at his press secretary, who's looking up perplexed as well, and he can see that he's looking at something, but he can't see what he's seeing. And he realizes whatever it is, it's definitely real to him. It's projecting to him that it's there. But as he said to me, he said, I can't say for sure that it was there, but it wanted me to know that it was real.
Right.
And he said, why would it do that? And I'm at a disadvantage in the sense that to protect this person, I can't reveal the role that they were playing. But suffice to say, it was a very senior role. And it's interesting that somebody in a very senior political leadership position was being projected to. Their perception was being manipulated in some way by what appears to have been a non-human intelligence representing itself to them in a way that could not be perceived by other people. And so that's why I'm often wary of even saying that when we see craft or even beings, I wonder whether there's a phenomenology that's capable of presenting itself in whatever way. And I think sometimes, you and I were talking yesterday about mantids. I'm talking to people who say that they have been visited by mantid beings. And I'll freely admit, 5-6 years ago, I would have laughed them out of town and gone, they're completely crazy people. These people, whether what they're seeing is real or not, I believe that they have had what they perceived as mantid beings in their home. And there is not a trace of guile in the way that they are telling me this story. And what's interesting is those mantid beings are telling them to engage with me. And it's getting quite personal, because this is happening quite a lot to me. And I don't think I'm important. I'm just a journalist. I really truly believe all I'm doing is following an absolute ball terror of a story.
I have a lot more experience with this stuff than he does. With my decades and everything. Decades. So, I mean, it's like, people like me, YouTube does not like a lot of stuff that I say. With him, it's about, because his message gets out to a lot more people than I do. Which is kind of fucked up, but I just have a cursed life.
And frankly, it suits me that the rest of the media don't chase this up, because at the moment very few people are running around chasing it.
Yeah, you're on the ground floor.
It's just a mind-blowing story. But what intrigues me is you can't rule out the possibility that what this all is the one phenomenon representing itself,
manipulating
in different
perception.
ways.
That, and when you say that, I immediately think back to Jake Barber's incident with this 8 gone craft, and he gets overwhelmed with this sense of love. What's to stop them from, imbuing us with those senses as well? Like, sure. There are tales from people like Dan Burrish, and take that for what it's worth. But he would also say that these beings would, when looking into their eyes, flood you with your own endorphins.
Right.
And give you a sense of calm and peace and almost euphoria.
Sure.
And
those are good ETs. There's bad ones, I know that. You're so scared of so much fear and stuff that you almost die from that fear and everything. And I wish that they would talk more about that, because I don't know. I mean, I just have to put that out there, because and I think some of these journalists also, they don't want to talk about that. They just want to talk about this awakening that could happen, and that's great. That there are bad, evil ETs out there that like to hurt people and beings and stuff like that, and people have to be careful. Mindful, and everything. So,
and because of that, you felt this sense of familiarity. You felt the sense of like, oh, I know these people. Oh, they're good, and they would essentially. He said that it was the rogue entities, the ones that took you at night, that did that to you.
But the really interesting thing about that is, if they can do that, a lot of people automatically default to the idea that, like, these are loving beings.
That's right. That's what I'm saying.
They're all benevolent.
It might be a psyop.
It could be that they're just manipulating us.
Mm.
And
I've had that thought a lot.
And it's interesting. I get very frustrated with people who decry the people who say that there's a threat here.
Right.
Because if you're a military person or an intelligence, counterintelligence person, by definition, what we're talking about here is a threat.
Sure.
Because we don't understand it. And it's not that it's evil or malevolent, but it's capable of being evil or malevolent.
Right.
And it's got the capabilities. If it's got the capabilities to manipulate our perception, think about the implications of that.
Yeah.
If it can make people feel differently. Imagine if a world leader could be manipulated to feel differently about a decision.
Yeah, the difference is that I'm very resigned to the idea that I'm not the apex here.
No, I certainly know we're not.
And I think a lot of people in power struggle with that, and that's probably the reason for
Yeah.
wanting to, defense up and try to, I don't know, defeat these things, or at least have the capability to defend yourself against these things when it's crystal clear that if they wanted to, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be allowed to be here, and there would be some other,
I mean, if you look at, for example, what our friend Patrick Jackson has talked about, this kind of sphere.
Well,
I don't think,
to be honest, we're just like cattle. A lot of these bees are just like cattle to them, and we're part of their creation in some ways, and they want to see us also evolve. It's like if we made our own type of subspecies of us, we'd be flying to their planet, we'd be watching them, we would try to get them to grow, but we wouldn't try to destroy them. But they're some of us are treated like they're cattle, just like they treat us like cattle sometimes, and some of us want us to evolve, and it depends on the extraterrestrial, the intelligence, on what they want to do with us, and everything. Now, the ETs that we do kill for getting our technology and stuff like that, they should be attacking us, if that is indeed what is happening. And I know we are doubting their craft and stuff like that, and that part doesn't make sense.
Patrick's got the whole story right.
Yeah.
But I do think that, and a lot of people are telling me internally, that a lot of what Patrick is talking about is actually hitting the right
Yeah, there's an
mark.
AI system defending this planet.
And maybe there are malevolent beings.
Sure.
I mean, certainly Colares, Brazil, describes phenomena where people were killed, they were mutilated, their genitals were cut off in some cases.
Blood loss.
Yeah, it was shocking. The cattle mutilation stuff, that doesn't seem very friendly. It's not very nice to go around murdering cattle.
I mean, human mutilations too.
Human mutilations. And frankly, there's a lady I'm talking to, she's in her 80s, her late 80s, and I find her account compelling because she actually went to a doctor and discovered that she'd been pregnant, but she had no memory of ever being pregnant, but her body had the classic signs of somebody who'd carried a baby. And yet there was no evidence of that anymore. Where was the baby? And she tells me this incredible story about how she's been in touch with what she says are benevolent beings that have shown her what's planned for the fetus that they took from her body.
Right.
And what do I do with that? I mean, how do we even begin to assess the credibility of a witness like that? Do we discount them out of turn? Do we, after 5 or 6 people have told me the same thing, start giving it, like John Mack did, a degree of credibility? That's where I'm sort of wrestling with at the moment, with the abduction phenomenon, because I've started going very gently down that rabbit hole. And I freely admit, as a journalist, I'm a bit scared of it, because there are so many people who are, with no disrespect to them, mentally ill, who are drawn to this subject matter, who make dramatic claims. And, a lot of the time I can pick them because they write in capitals or they put 20 stamps on the letter when they post it to me. There's signs of mental instability. But a lot of these people are highly credible, intelligent, professional people who just happen to have an experience that they can't explain, that involves them very strongly believing that they've been in touch with a non-human intelligence.
Yeah, I think it's important to tell those stories, from my opinion.
Sure.
And it's easy for me to say, as someone who, for the most part, provides entertainment in this space and doesn't necessarily provide like a rigorous journalistic approach to this as much as you do, and you have this credibility to uphold that you've created.
I find that these people are more credible than the military. So it's really fucked up that you would trust everything the government tells you. You know, these government people, but not these people that have had more interactions with ETs than even these people from the government from in certain ways and everything. And it's like you just want to show one side of this extraterrestrial, not even intelligence thing, but you don't want to show the reality of this other side of evil beings, you know, kidnapping, raping humans and impregnating them and for another type of, you know, human alien hybrid race and stuff like that, which, you know, usually woman is previous, she's a human man for sperm and stuff like that and everything.
You know, throughout your entire life, and that is you know, much you've got to be much more careful than I do with this stuff. But I think that there is a value and an importance to let people, and people who are obviously mentally stable, to tell their story with.
You dumbass, you expect people to be fucking stable, you idiots? God, you're fucking stupid. Who is going to be fucking stable, you dumbasses? That is fucking stupid. You're fucking stupid. You know, you expect people to be stable, having these experiences. There's something really fucked up in your heads about that. Something really fucked up. Mentally in your head, his head. You know, you're talking about people would be in mental institution. I almost was because of my experiences. You're total fuck up in thinking that. There's nothing, because this is not ordinary stuff. This is extraordinary. This is, you know, different dimensional type of stuff. And you say, well, versus, you know, stable. It's like nobody. There's nothing stable about what's going on with alien abduction and stuff like that. You better damn well expect them, you know, to have some problems with that, you know. But I've seen people that have gone through abductions where they are, you know, stable and stuff like that and everything. And I trust what they have to say more than you guys do in some ways, because I've been around this more and I know more about it and stuff. So, you know, that's
out this idea of, is it credible, is it not credible, and just give them a safe, comfortable space to tell that story.
Anyways, I'm done. I think nobody's watching. Shitty YouTube doesn't help anybody on here. So